In the vast, sun-scorched expanse of history, few names echo with the same power and ambition as Alexander the Great. His story isn't just one of conquest. It's a saga of a young king who dared to dream of a world united under a single banner, his banner. From the rugged hills of Macedon, he inherited a kingdom and an army, but his vision stretched far beyond its borders to the very edges of the known world. This is the story of how that vision was forged in the crucible of battle, leading men across continents, through deserts and over mountains, against empires that had stood for centuries. Our journey begins in 334 BC. Imagine the scene: the Hellespont, a shimmering strait separating Europe from Asia. On one shore, the legacy of Greece. On the other, the mighty Persian Empire, a colossal power ruled by Darius III. Alexander, just 22 years old, stands with his army. 40,000 men, a mix of Macedonian veterans and Greek allies, their faces a mixture of hope and apprehension. They are about to step into the lion's den. The air is thick with the scent of salt and the metallic tang of polished bronze. Sunlight glints off thousands of sarissas, the fearsome 18-foot pikes that are the backbone of the Macedonian phalanx. Alexander, a commanding presence even then, performs sacred rites, invoking the heroes of old, casting his spear into Asian soil, claiming the continent as his own. It's a bold, almost audacious gesture, but it electrifies his men. They are not just soldiers, they are instruments of destiny. Their first major test comes swiftly at the Granicus River. The Persian satraps, the regional governors, have gathered a force to crush this upstart invader at the water's edge. They hold the high ground on the opposite bank, a seemingly perfect defensive position. Conventional military wisdom would say to wait, to cross under the cover of night. But Alexander is anything but conventional. He sees hesitation as a weakness. To him, audacity is a weapon. Mounted on his legendary black stallion, Bucephalus, he leads the charge himself. He plunges into the river, his elite companion cavalry at his side, a flash of bronze and crimson against the churning water. The Persians are stunned by his recklessness, his sheer force of will. The battle is a brutal, chaotic affair. In the swirling melee, Alexander is a whirlwind of action, his helmet a beacon. He is targeted, nearly struck down, but saved by his friend Clytus the Black. By day's end, the Persian line has shattered. The victory is total and decisive. The message is clear. Alexander has arrived, and he is not to be underestimated. With this victory, the western coast of Asia Minor opens up to him. City after city falls, some welcoming him as a liberator from Persian rule, others resisting fiercely. At Halicarnassus, he faces a protracted siege, a grueling test of engineering and endurance. But his army is more than just a phalanx. It is a sophisticated military machine, complete with siege towers and engineers capable of breaching the most formidable walls. The conquest continues, a relentless march down the coast. A year later, at Issus, Alexander faces Darius himself for the first time. The Persian king has amassed a colossal army, vastly outnumbering the Macedonians. The battlefield is a narrow coastal plain, hemmed in by mountains on one side and the sea on the other. This geography, however, plays into Alexander's hands. It prevents Darius from deploying his full numerical superiority, forcing the battle into a more confined space where the discipline and training of the Macedonian phalanx can truly shine. The Persian line is a glittering sea of soldiers from across the empire, Greeks, Babylonians, and the elite infantry known as the Immortals. As the battle rages, the Macedonian left wing begins to buckle under the immense pressure. It's a critical moment. A lesser commander might have wavered, But Alexander has an almost preternatural sense of the battlefield. He identifies the one place where a decisive blow can be struck, the Persian center, where Darius commands from his war chariot. Once again, Alexander leads the charge. It's a thunderous assault, the companion cavalry smashing into the Persian lines like a thunderbolt. Their goal is singular: the king. As Alexander and his riders close in, cutting a bloody path through Darius's personal guard, panic grips the Persian monarch. Faced with the terrifying prospect of capture or death at the hands of this seemingly invincible young king, Darius turns his chariot and flees the field. His flight triggers a catastrophic collapse. The Persian army, its command and courage broken, disintegrates into a rooting mob. The victory at Issus is staggering. Alexander captures the Persian camp, along with Darius's own mother, wife, and children. In a gesture that would become legendary, he treats them not as prisoners, but with the honor and respect due to royalty, solidifying his image as a chivalrous conqueror, not a mere barbarian. But the path to the heart of Persia is not yet clear. Alexander turns south to secure the Mediterranean coastline and neutralize the Persian fleet. This leads him to the island city of Tyre, a seemingly impregnable fortress. The Tyrians are confident, protected by the sea and their massive walls. They refuse to surrender. So, Alexander undertakes one of the most astonishing engineering feats in ancient history. He decides to build a causeway, a land bridge, across the half-mile of open water to the city walls. For 7 months, his soldiers labor under a constant barrage of arrows and fire from the Tyrian defenders. They build 2 massive siege towers to protect the workers, only to see them destroyed by a Tyrian fireship. Morale plummets. Any other leader might have abandoned the effort. But Alexander's will is iron. He rebuilds, bigger and stronger. He gathers a fleet of his own from other conquered cities, blockades the island, and finally, after months of relentless toil and brutal fighting, his forces breach the walls. The fall of Tyre is a grim and brutal affair, a stark reminder of the price of defiance. From Tyre, he marches into Egypt. Here, he is not met with resistance, but with celebration. The Egyptians, who have long chafed under Persian rule, welcome him as a liberator. They crown him pharaoh, a divine ruler. It is here, at the mouth of the Nile, that he founds the first and most famous of his many cities, Alexandria. It is a testament to his vision, a future hub of culture, learning, and commerce, a melting pot of Greek and Egyptian civilization. While in Egypt, he makes a perilous journey into the desert to the oasis of Siwa to consult the famed oracle of Ammon. What is said in the sanctuary remains a mystery, but Alexander emerges believing he is the son of a god, a belief that will fuel his ambition and shape his destiny for the rest of his life. With his divinity seemingly confirmed and his rear secured, Alexander turns his gaze eastward once more, toward the heart of the Persian Empire. The final confrontation with Darius is inevitable. In 331 BC, on the plains of Gaugamela, near modern-day Iraq, the 2 armies meet for the last time. Darius has learned from his mistakes. He has chosen a wide, open plain, perfect for his scythed chariots and superior numbers. He has gathered the full might of his empire, an army estimated by some ancient sources to be as large as 1 million men, though modern historians believe it was closer to 250,000. It is still a terrifying force, dwarfing Alexander's army of less than 50,000. As dawn breaks, the Macedonians look out upon a sea of enemies stretching to the horizon. The dust kicked up by their movement clouds the sky. The air hums with the low murmur of a vast host. There is fear in the camp. His general, Parmenion, advises a night attack, but Alexander scoffs at the idea. "I will not steal my victory," he declares. He wants to win in the bright light of day, to shatter the Persian army in a decisive, unambiguous confrontation. The Battle of Gaugamela is a masterpiece of tactics and courage. Alexander deploys his army in a seemingly unorthodox formation, with his flanks refused, drawn back at an angle to counter the Persian envelopment. He knows Darius will try to surround him. He is counting on it. As the battle begins, the scythed chariots charge, a terrifying spectacle designed to break the phalanx. But the Macedonians are prepared. They open their ranks, creating channels for the chariots to pass through harmlessly, where they are picked off by javelins. The main Persian attack then crashes against the Macedonian line. As planned, Darius commits his cavalry to encircle Alexander's right wing. This is the moment Alexander has been waiting for. The Persian movement opens a gap in their own center, right next to Darius's position. It is Issus all over again, but on a grander, more epic scale. Alexander leads the companion cavalry in a perfectly timed diagonal charge, driving like a wedge straight for that gap. The impact is devastating. Once more, the heart of the Persian army is pierced. Once more, Darius sees Alexander, the warrior king, cutting through his royal guards, coming for him, and once more he flees. The flight of the king is the death knell of the Persian Empire. The army collapses, the battle turns into a rout, and the slaughter is immense. Gaugamela is not just a victory, it is the end of an era. The Achaemenid Empire, which had dominated the world for over 2 centuries, is shattered forever. Alexander marches into Babylon, then Susa, and finally to the ceremonial capital of Persepolis, the jewel of Persia. The wealth he captures is beyond imagination, enough to fund his campaigns for decades to come. But here, in a move that remains controversial to this day, he allows the great palace of Persepolis to be burned to the ground. Was it a drunken act of revenge for the Persian burning of Athens a century and a half earlier? Or a calculated political statement, a signal that the old empire was truly dead and a new era had begun? Perhaps it was both. But for Alexander, the world was still not big enough. The conquest of Persia was not the end of the journey, but merely a stepping stone. He pushes ever eastward into the unknown lands of Bactria and Sogdia, modern-day Afghanistan and Central Asia. Here, he faces not great armies in pitched battles, but a grueling, frustrating guerrilla war against fierce mountain tribes. It's a brutal, thankless campaign that tests his army to its limits. Yet, he adapts. He founds more cities, marries Roxana, the daughter of a local chieftain, and slowly pacifies the region through a mix of ruthless force and shrewd diplomacy. His gaze then turns to India. In 326 BC, he crosses the Hindu Kush and descends into the Punjab. At the Hydaspes River, he faces his most formidable opponent yet, King Porus and his army of war elephants. The Macedonians had never faced these creatures in battle before. The sight of these armored beasts, trumpeting and terrifying, could break the nerve of the most seasoned soldiers. The battle that follows is perhaps Alexander's greatest tactical achievement. He crosses the river during a thunderstorm to surprise Porus, and in the ensuing fight, his phalanx holds firm against the elephant charges, their long sarissas creating a bristling wall of spear points that the animals refuse to charge. The battle is a bloody, hard-won victory. Alexander, so impressed by Porus's courage, allows him to keep his kingdom, making him an ally. But at the Hyphasis River, the final frontier of his ambition, his journey comes to an end. Not at the hands of an enemy, but by the will of his own men. Exhausted, homesick, Worn down by years of ceaseless campaigning, they refuse to go any further. They have marched thousands of miles, fought countless battles, and they long to return home and enjoy the spoils of their empire. For the first time, Alexander's charisma and powers of persuasion fail him. He pleads, he rages, but their minds are set. With a heavy heart, the unconquered conqueror is forced to turn back. His dream of reaching the great outer ocean, the end of the world, is denied. The long march home is an ordeal in itself, particularly the crossing of the brutal Gedrosian desert, where thousands perish from heat and thirst. Alexander returns to Babylon, the new capital of his vast, multicultural empire. But the man who returns is not the same one who left Macedon a decade earlier. He is haunted, perhaps, by the limits he had finally met. He throws himself into organizing his empire, planning new expeditions to Arabia, but his time is running out. In 323 BC, after a bout of fever, Alexander the Great dies in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II. He is just 32 years old. His final words, when asked to whom he left his empire, were supposedly, "To the strongest." It was a prophecy that would unleash 50 years of war among his generals, tearing his hard-won empire apart. His legacy, however, was not just one of war and conquest. He had shattered the old world and ushered in a new one. The Hellenistic Age, a fusion of Greek and Eastern cultures, would shape the course of history for centuries. He was a visionary, a genius, a tyrant, a hero. More than 2,000 years later, his name still inspires awe, a timeless symbol of boundless ambition and the indomitable will to chase the horizon. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please like, share, and subscribe for more epic stories from history.